A good writer must also be a good reader. So, fellow writers out there, what are you reading these days, and what lessons can you learn from it to apply to your own writing? Hey, it's Sam with a Friday video for you. I will answer those questions for myself in just a moment. Happy Friday. I don't think there's many other updates to share right now. Sometimes I do a brief transition, but no. Um, I've been submitting queries to agents, as you guys know, agents and publishers. I think I have at least five outstanding queries to agents right now. And obviously they take time to respond to you, but I mean, I'm trying to do this consistently. I'm hoping at least one of them comes through. So fingers crossed, and or prayers or well wishes. Whatever you guys can send my way, I'll keep updating about that. People have asked me both in person and online, like, any updates, anything about the book, and as soon as I go, as soon as I know something, you guys will know too. I'm not shy about posting on social media, so I don't really make it my goal to hide big news. So as soon as I have big news, whether that's in a few weeks or who knows when, you guys will know. So we'll see. Anyway, book reading for now. Book review. Here's the book I just finished reading, and I'll tell you what I liked about it. I read With a Mind to Kill by Anthony Horowitz. Okay, this is a James Bond novel. If you can see that at the bottom, and it is the third James Bond novel by this author. He said it's a trilogy, and he does say in the afterword this will most likely be his last one. I didn't know if he was going to do more or what, but this will most likely be his last one. He said. So Anthony Horowitz, if you didn't know, is an author I've liked for a while. He wrote a series called Alex Rider about a teenage secret agent who's, basically a 14-year-old James Bond or something. And he even says in the afterword list that James Bond at least partially inspired Alex Rider. I mean, obviously Bond is the iconic seminal British secret agent, and so, um, you know, Horowitz, grew from the inspiration of those who came before him. But I read those books as a kid, as a teenager. I mean, I'm too old for them now. He is writing more. And I haven't kept up with the most recent ones, but I read them for a long time. I'm probably longer than I was than I was age appropriate for, and liked them a lot. So it was cool for me to see this author who I've liked for a long time getting to write the actual James Bond canonical books, and I'm sure it's. I'm sure. I mean, if it's cool for you as a reader to experience that, imagine as a writer. Like, imagine. I don't know if you're a fantasy author, um, and you've written like your own fantasy story, and then someone authorizes you or whatever. I mean, just an example. Not saying this actually happened, but like the the Tolkien estate chooses you to write like the next saga of Lord of the Rings, and you're like, what? Yeah, like imagine getting to write the biggest character in your genre and just like in canon and having that be a thing. So that's pretty cool. Life calls for all of us. So yeah, it's the third novel, third James Bond novel by Anthony Horowitz, and he's been setting these novels in between the canonical like James Bond novels, by Ian Fleming, by the original. I know that the movies and such. I mean, some of them have loosely adapted Fleming's novels, although now I think so. Okay, and let me just say up front, I'm not a James Bond aficionado. I mean, um, I like him. I've mostly read the new ones. Hey, buddy, that isn't a video. Can you wait a minute? I love you. That's my little guy peeking in there. Yeah. So like I've read these. I've watched most of the Daniel Craig movies. I haven't watched. I've seen bits and pieces of the old ones, but I'm most familiar with the Daniel Craig ones. The person to ask about the movie is my dad, who's also an author. Who's been on here before, Mark R. Harris, but he's a fan of the movies. I don't know if he's read any or all the novels by Ian Fleming, but anyway, Ian Fleming only wrote like maybe a dozen James Bond novels. They're listed in the back here, and now there's like 40 Bond movies. So I kind of think they've gone beyond the scope of the original series. But one thing about the movies is, of course, they have Bond in modern times. He's kind of the everyman character who can be in any setting. But Horowitz puts them in the canonical Bond novels, or like puts it in between it. So that means like it takes place in the 50s, or I think that's in the 60s by this point. But anyway, 50s and 60s. And references the events of the other ones. because that's when Fleming was originally writing. So this takes place after The Man with the Golden Gun, which was Fleming's last novel. And again, I didn't know all this because I'm a longtime fan of Bond, like or like an aficionado. I just read his introductory material and did some Wikipediaing of my own. But Man with the Golden Gun was Fleming's last Bond novel, and this takes place after it. So it's and in that one, and I'm not sure how faithfully the movie adapted it or not. In that one, Bond was actually brainwashed by the Russians, and like captured and brainwashed, and they sent him back to England to kill M. M is of course his boss at MI6, and so like temporarily Bond was brainwashed and had an assassination attempt. So this is like a sequel to that, and they're saying, okay, Bond, they brainwashed you and you're back to normal now, but we want you to go back to Russia and to those people and go undercover, pretend you're still brainwashed, pretend you're still serving their cause and such, so you can find out what they're up to and what they want. So it begins with M's funeral. Spoilers: M didn't actually die. They faked the funeral for him. Begins with M's funeral, and and then Bond goes off to back to Russia to his handler, who is supposedly has brainwashed him and such, or who did brainwash him, but he's overcome that, and he has to figure out what they're up to and why they still want to use him and such. And so, of course, it's it's everything you expect from a Bond action novel. It's political intrigue. Obviously, pretty girls and such. There's one girl who becomes his love interest in this book, and there's dastardly villains who you want to see get what's coming from them, and eventually they do. It's everything you expect from an action novel like that: a good guy versus bad guy, thrills and heroics and all that stuff. I think this one had an interesting element. Just the part where he goes undercover and has to pretend to be brainwashed. That added some interesting intrigue to it. What was I going to say? I can't remember. Yeah, and I've kind of I think the last few times I talked about these Bond novels and tried to talk about how what writing lessons can we apply from this. I'm looking at how this this author humanizes the character, because again I'm like, how do you write an iconic character like James Bond? I mean for one thing, he's larger than life, even though he's technically human. He's lived on in many different incarnations, and he always wins in the end and survives, except in Spectre. Spoilers. Anyway, but it's basically he's this larger than life character who can do anything and doesn't show emotion and all that stuff. And like, how do you humanize him? And that can be a challenge for an author. I mean, an appropriate challenge, I think, but a challenge. I think he does humanize the character. I mean, it's not like I don't know, Bond doesn't have like these emotional monologues or anything because he's Bond. He doesn't do that. But since it's in the chronological timeline and it's not just a name, it's not just like this ageless immortal Bond. He does the characters in our thoughts do talk about, well, Bond's getting older and a lot of the people in intelligence are younger than him these days. This is one of his last adventures, and so he's not as fast or whatever or as strong as he used to be. And just like the brainwashing he goes through and how that affects him. I mean, it's how his mental struggles with that, and the torture he has to endure and all that stuff. I mean, that affects him and such. And it's not drawn out. It's not like I don't know what else to compare it to. It's not like this long, big emotional like introspective moment, but you can tell the character is human, and at least this version, he's not immortal. He's hurting and slowing and feeling and things like that. So, but he's still an action hero. He's still a cool guy doing good things, and obviously spoilers, the good guys win. Bond beats the bad guy in the end and doesn't succumb to mind control and all that stuff. So I mean, it's fun to see his human side a little bit, as well as his tough guy action side. I think that's what we like about these heroes. I'm not saying it's never been done before. I'm not saying it's the pinnacle of originality or of high literature. I am saying it's a fun read. Could be a fun beach read or well, it's not summertime, but if you're looking for pure entertainment, just a light but fun action novel, I recommend Anthony Horowitz. Any of his books that I've read, he's written a lot. I've not read all of his, but I've read the Alex Rider ones and now his 3 Bond novels. So I recommend any of those, including With a Mind to Kill, for anyone who likes the kind of thing and you just want some fun escapism for a while. It's not long either. It's like 250 pages or something like that. So many people, a lot of people read faster than me because I'm pretty busy these days and I don't read as fast as I used to. I got through it in a couple weeks, but you probably could read it faster than that. So yeah, go check it out. Anthony Horowitz, With a Mind to Kill, a James Bond novel, and yeah, hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening and reading and watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.